This week's parasha is Parashas Kisisa, and I'd like to study the incident of the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf, and I want to do it from the perspective of Rashi primarily, because there's many different ways to read it, and I think Rashi normally is not as, hold on, let me just get the place in this beautiful edition I have here. Hold on. Okay. So normally Rashi is not as um, tendentious or as very clearly reading the text so much in favor of a biblical character. But Rashi goes out of his way here to present a very strong defense of Aaron, which is seemingly in contradiction to the actual written text. So I wanted to read the story of the golden calf from Rashi's perspective. So we're going to chapter 32, verse 1. Vayaram kiboshesh Moshe loredis minahar. So it says in chapter 32, verse 1, that the people saw that Moshe was delayed coming down from the mountain. Vayikaelam al Aaron, the people gathered on Aaron, and Vayomru elav, and they said to him, Kum say Lanu Elohim. Go make for us a God, Asher Yahufanenu, who will walk in before us. Kizem Moshe Ha'ish, Asher Lanu Mitzrayim will Yadanu Mahayalo. Because this man Moshe, this man Moshe, who led us out from Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So right away, we see a few things in this verse. The people how did all the problems start? Because Moshe was late. We see from here, don't be late. It's a big point. All the problems with the golden calf started because Moshe was late, especially important for a leader not to be late. And right away, the people gathered on Aaron and they said, make for us an Elohim who will walk before us. Before we read the explanation of Rashi, I want to read the commentary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Chumash of the Rebbe, he has a whole comment that Rashi's explanation of the golden calf, verses 1 through 6. Actually, first we'll read the Rashi's explanation, and then we'll go back to read what the Rebbe says. But first, we'll of course, actually, before we go to the Rashi, I want to read, it's only 6 verses. The whole story here of the worshiping of the golden calf is only 6 verses. So first I want to read the 6 verses, then we'll read the Rashi, then we'll see what the Rebbe says and the other Rebbes. Verse 2, Vayomer Aleim Aaron. So Aaron, after he was approached by the people, they said, make for us a leader. Aaron said to them, Parkun is me'azahav. Remove your golden earrings, asher ba'oznei neshechem, that are in the ears of your wives. B'nechem u'b'nosechem v'aviolai. Remove your earrings that are in your wives' ears, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me. Seems to be like Aaron is all in. From the literal text, Aaron seems to be all in. Number 3, Vayisparku kol ha'ames nizmei hazahav. All the people removed their golden rings, asher ba'oznei, that were in their ears. Vayavil Aaron. The people listened. They took their rings off and they brought them to Aaron. Number 4, Vayikach mi'adam. He took the rings from their hands. Vayatzaro to b'cheret. He bound it up in a scarf or a Rashi says it means a scarf. It could mean like a mold or wrapped it up. Vayasua egel mesecha. And he made a calf that was from an image, a molten calf. He made a calf. He said, this is your Elohecha. These are your gods, O Israel, who led you up from Egypt. Next verse. Vayar Aaron, and Aaron saw this. Vayivem is be'achufanav, and he built an altar before him. Vayikra Aaron, and Aaron called out, Vayomer Chag LaHashem machar. Let there be a festival for Hashem. Here it doesn't say gods. Here it's the more direct name of God, the Jewish name of God, Hashem. Vayashkimu mimacharas. They woke up early in the morning. Vayalu olot. They brought the offerings. Vayagishu shlamim. They brought the peace offerings. Vayeshev ha'am le'chol. The people sat down to eat, v'shato, and they drank, v'yakumu l'tzachek. And then they got up and were merry. Before we pause for questions, it's from the literal text, it seems that the people were worried Moshe was late. They go to Aaron, they say, Moshe is late, make for us a god. Aaron offers zero resistance. Immediately he comes up with a plan, a building project to create this golden calf. They build a golden calf. Aaron says, festival to God tomorrow, and everybody's merry. No resistance. Aaron seems to be completely complicit. And yet, we'll see in just a moment, Rashi does not read it that way. And probably the reason why Rashi doesn't read it that way is because the context of the rest of the Torah does not view Aaron as guilty. Aaron escapes the punishment of Moses, the wrath of God. Not only that, Aaron is elevated in to be the Kohen Gadol. So Aaron, in the context of the rest of the Torah, is a tremendous righteous person. So Rashi reads this scene not as a sin of Aaron, but as we'll see how he reads it. But it's from the literal text. It seems like Aaron is certainly complicit. Okay, so let's pause for a moment to take. I see that the Newman. Okay, so now let's look how Rashi reads this. Kibo shesh Moshe. Moshe was delayed. Rashi says, Kitarguma. His first approach is like Onkelos says. And what does Onkelos say? He says, Chaza Ama, the people saw, Are Ocher Moshe, Mechas Mentura. The people saw that Moshe was delayed, that he was late, coming down from the mountain, an expression of lateness. Also, the phrase in Judges, Bo Shesh Richbo. Where else do we see this phrase? That the chariot of Sisera was late, the enemy of the Jewish people. Vayachiu ad Bush, also in Judges, that after the assassination of the king of Moab by Ehud, he assassinated him while he was in his bathhouse or bathroom in the upper chamber. They thought he was going to the bathroom, so they waited until he was late. So the word Boshesh means late. So Rashi says, how come Moshe was late? Ki kisha'oah Moshe lahar. When Moshe went up the mountain, Amar lahem, Moshe said, L'sof arba'im yom ani ba b'toch sheishos. At the end of the 40 days, I will come within the first 6 hours of the day. Kisvurim, they thought, she'oso yom she'olam min aminyanhu. They thought that first day that he went up was day 1. V'hu amar lahem shleimin, but Moshe meant 40 complete days. Arba'im yom v'leilo imo, 40 days with the night. So Moshe didn't count the first day. V'yom el yato ein leilo imo, and the day Moshe went, he didn't count because the night was not counted with it. Shari b'shiva b'sivan Allah. Moses goes up on the seventh day of Sivan. This shows Arba'im b'shiva aser b'tammuz. And if we say that day 40 was on the 17th of Tammuz. So on the 16th of Tammuz, b'shisha aser b'asi satan v'erbei b'sa'olam. 16th day, the Satan came and confused everybody. Hared demut choshech v'afela v'erbuvia. He showed them he showed them darkness and gloom and confusion. And so the people said, Vadai meis Moshe, for sure Moses has died. Therefore, by erbuvia la'olam. And that's why they said confusion had came to the world. He said to them, Mate Moshe. Moshe has come. Shekfar bo shaot, because 6 hours have passed. V'lo bakuhu, and not everybody has come, as it states in Shabbos 89a, which, by the way, is related also to the Purim story there. So let me just summarize what we just read. Moshe said, "I'm coming down 40 days in the first 6 hours of the day." But they were off by 1 day because Moshe assumed it was 40 days from full days, counting the night before. And they thought, let's start counting from the day you went up, just 40 straight days. So by Moshe's count, he was supposed to come down on the 17th of Tammuz. By their count, Moshe was supposed to come down in the morning of the 16th of Tammuz. So once the morning of the 16th of Tammuz passed and Moshe was not down, Satan comes along and makes the world look dark, and they thought Moshe must have died, and that's why there's confusion in the world. So right away they assume Moshe is dead. Now, on the one hand, this is ridiculous because how long did it take for them to panic? Moments, seconds. Like seconds. Moshe didn't come back right away. There's Satan brings darkness to the world. All of a sudden, they're panicking and making another god. But isn't that how mob mentalities work? All of a sudden, there's a run on eggs or toilet paper. Everybody starts panicking. And this is the way the world works. That it doesn't take long for large groups of people to just immediately panic. And Moshe was in their mind a few minutes late. And they started panicking. So it wasn't that they set out to make another god. It's just that they were in a panic. They were in a panic because they thought Moshe had died. And if Moshe had died, you'd have to imagine that their whole theology is messed up. Their whole theology was based upon Moshe being the direct conduit to God. If he died, everything is destroyed. It's like they're breaking their whole world. Rashi says, you can't say, you can't say that they made a mistake on the count because it was a cloudy day, so they made a mistake, meaning to say that Moshe was supposed to come down on the 16th day, but they thought it was the afternoon, and Moshe came down, but it was still morning. Because Rashi says, because Moshe really didn't come down until the next day. So you can't just say, oh, they got their time wrong because they all didn't have Apple Watches. But Moshe only came down the next day. And we know that because it says they woke up early in the morning and they brought the sacrifices. So we see from here that there was a day apart. 1 day. That's all it took. So they said, come make for us an Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu. So Rashi, even though we could read it that they wanted to replace Moshe, Rashi says, Elohut harbe ivuahem. They wanted to have many gods. So this Rashi seems to indicate that they desired many gods. They desired idolatry. They wanted, okay, let's hedge our bets and have many gods. So they said this man Moshe has died. Once again, Rashi is blaming Satan for this mistake they made. Because what does Satan do? Rashi says, Kemin demut Moshe herela hema satan. Satan showed them an image of Moses. Satan showed them an image of Moses that they were carrying him in the heavens as though he was dead. Because the Rashi is based upon the fact that it says, because this man Moshe, means that they were showing him that. It's interesting. And nowadays we're talking about the idea that AI does make completely false videos, manipulating video evidence, and gets everybody thinking what they're thinking when it's not really what they're thinking at all. But the rabbis anticipated this. that what you're seeing is completely not the appropriate thing. The rabbis anticipated this because they said Moshe the saints showed them an image. So why are the people sinning? They're sinning because they were manipulated by Satan to see things. And once they saw things, they completely abandoned their world. They saw the world falling apart, and they saw an image of Moshe dead. I want to take a second here to make a shout out to Deborah, who's joining us from Thailand. That's always impressive when people join us when they're traveling. They stop and they join us from the other end of the world. So big shikoyach to you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And we are so glad. Okay, so then the next verse says, right away when they approached Aaron, Aaron says, remove your golden earrings from your wife, your children, and your daughters. Seems to be very, very problematic statement that Aaron is making. Rather than Aaron saying, whoa, what's going on here? Aaron immediately starts to help them. Oh, wait, I skipped the Rashi. He said, the man Moshe brought us up from Egypt, and Moshe was our Mora Lanu Darech Asher Na'aba. Moshe showed us the way. He was our counselor, basically. He was our madrich. Now we need other gods who will go before us, basically. So why do they want a god? So Rashi is saying that they were looking for guidance that Moshe was giving them. And that's why they needed these other gods to give them guidance. That what Moshe's advice could only be replaced by other gods. His advice was so good. So now we go to the question of Aaron. They said, Aaron, why is Aaron going along with them? So Rashi is the defense of Aaron. This is the defense of Aaron. Says the Rashi, Aaron said to himself, Amar Aaron Belibo, Hanashim v'yawadim chasim al. Aaron said, the women and the children, they like their jewelry. They're not going to give up their jewelry right away. Shema yitakev adavar ubetochach yavo Moshe. Aaron said, I'm going to ask them to bring the jewelry from their wives. Maybe that'll delay the matter. Usually you go home, you ask your wife says no, that's the end of the matter. This will be a big delay. And in the meantime, Moshe will come. Ve'em lo itinu, but the men did not wait. Instead, they removed their own jewelry. Parkume alatzman, they removed their own jewelry. The Rashi says Aaron was not going along with their request. He was trying to hold the people off until Moshe came. That's how Rashi reads it. So it's a little bit problematic because that's not what the text says. And the next Rashi says, Vayit Parku, all of the people unburden themselves. They unburdened themselves. When they took the earrings from their ears, it was like an unburdening. So they quickly brought their own earrings they didn't bring the earrings of their wives, they brought their own earrings. That's why the women did not sin. Vayikach miadam, and then in the next verse, Aaron takes it and he puts it in a scarf and he makes the golden calf. So this seems to be a terrible indictment of the verse of Aaron. How is Rashi going to defend Aaron in this circumstance? Look what Rashi says. Rashi says, first of all, what is the word cheret? You can translate it in two ways. First way is that he tied it up. In this case, cheret means a scarf. And Rashi gives the cognates for that. Or else, alternatively, Rashi gives a second explanation. Hold on 1 second. The second explanation is, Rashi says, the second explanation Bacheret Kui Umanus Hatzorfun. It refers to a goldsmith's tool. Shechortin v'chortin bo tzuras v'zahav. They engrave and they make figures into the gold. So basically, like a scribe who etches letters into tablets and writing stylets. So meaning to say, it was a tool. So it was either a scarf to tie or it was a tool. And Aaron drops it in, and it says that they made, and after he did it, Aaron takes it and he made it into a golden calf. Now, this seems to be very problematic. How is Aaron able to do this? So Rashi says, Kivan sheishlichu or bakur. Once Aaron threw the gold, he threw it into a fire, into the kiln. Right away, Rashi introduces into the text a huge defense of Aaron. Rashi says, Aaron threw it in, expecting nothing to happen, but the mixed multitude, i.e., the non-Jewish Egyptians who tagged along, they who went up from Egypt, they immediately attached themselves to the Jewish people, and they came along and they made witchcraft. So these sorcerers are the ones who turned it into the golden calf. Rashi says it was not Aaron. And alternatively, Micha Yasham. Micha was there. Sheyatza mitoch dimusei binyan shenisma'ech bo b'mitzrayim. Micha was there. Micha had arisen out of a row of bricks from which he had been crushed in Egypt. We're actually going to get to this in the Daf Yomi in 2 weeks. That what happened was, Paro said that if the children of Israel cannot meet their quota of bricks, what he would do, this is the Gemara in Sanhedrin in 101b, he said he would take the Jewish children and cement them into the walls. When Moshe complained about this to God, God told him that these children who were being killed, God was killing the ones who were going to be wicked in the future. Very, very deeply problematic theological statement, but that's what the Talmud says. Moshe argued with this, and Moshe said, let me save one and see what happens. So the child Moshe saved was this Micha, who made this golden calf, and later in the book of Judges in chapter 17 makes an idol. So we see from here that Rashi is saying that this was the child Moshe saved when he tried to mess with God's divine plan. And this child Micha v'haya biyado shem vatas. He had in his hand a name of God and a plate, and it says on it, Moshe had written on it, Alei Shur, La'alot Arono Shel Yosef mitoch Nilus. Moshe used this plate to say, arise ox from the river to take up Joseph's coffin. And they used this, Ve'yishlichu l'toch hakor, and Micha threw this into the fire, the Yatza Egel, and the golden calf came out. So this is a very deep midrash. The midrash is saying this boy who Moshe saved took a tool that Moshe used to find Joseph's body, which Moshe did before they left Egypt. He found Joseph's bone, and he used this technique to create the golden calf. So it has nothing to do with Aaron. Aaron was acting innocently. And then this person who Moshe had thrust upon Aaron, he was the one who caused all the problems. So that's Rashi's defense of Aaron. And then what does it mean? Egel masecha, lashon mateches. Masecha comes from metal. Or alternatively, there are 125 kantarin of gold in it, which is the gematria of masecha. Okay, so he made this metal golden calf. And then they said, this is your God, O Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. So what does that mean? They didn't say, Lo namer ella Eloheinu, but it does not say, these are our gods. So this is Rashi's proof that it was the Erev, this mixed, these basically mixed multitude of other nations that attached themselves, that went up from Egypt, and they're the ones who gathered on Aaron. The Haim Shasu, they're the ones who made it. V'achakach hitu et Yisrael acharav. So they're the ones who had Israel astray. So Rashi blames the Erev whom Moshe brought up. Rashi blames Satan. Rashi blames the sorcerers. Rashi blames Micha, whom Moshe saved. But everybody is to blame except for Aaron. Aaron is blameless so far. But now we have a big problem. The next verse is the biggest problem of all. It says in the next verse that Aaron sees this and he builds an altar before him and he calls out festival to God tomorrow. It seems to be like he's cooperating. Aaron saw had the spirit of life, as it says, B'tavnit shor ochel Esav. It says they exchanged their glory for the image of an ox eating grass. So miraculously, this ox that they made was animated. And Aaron saw that Satan was successful. Ra'ash etzliach maseh Satan. He saw that Satan was successful. Now what's he supposed to do? He's standing there facing total defeat. At this point, lo hayalo pel et chotam lagamri. He had no more ability to push them off. He had no more ability because at this point, what's he supposed to do? They built this ox came out, this calf came out, which was totally animated. So what does he do? Vayivem mizbeach. He built an altar, seemingly a sin. She says no, he was not complicit. Doesn't mean that he built an altar to worship. Rashi rather says, litchotam, to push them off. He said he was trying to delay them even more. And therefore he says, a festival for Hashem tomorrow, not today, because he was worried maybe Moshe would come. He was hoping that Moshe would come before they would worship it. And this is what Rashi says, this is my favorite. He says, maybe Moshe will come before they worship it. And then Rashi writes, this is the best. Zehu pshuto. This is the simplest reading of the text, meaning this is its literal meaning. This reminds me of what my dear friend Leon Cass once told me. He once said to me, what's the difference between drash and pshat? When I say it, it's pshat. When you say it, it's drash. I mean, Rashi calls this pshat. It's clearly his very obviously beautiful, but very generous reading to Aaron. So then Rashi gives a midrash b'Vayikra Rabbah. Rashi cites a midrash from Vayikra Rabbah that further justifies why Aaron did it. Listen to this. It says, what did Aaron saw? Varim Harbe, because it says Aaron saw. What did he see? He saw many things. Why did Aaron do this? He had a different perspective. Ra or Ben Achoto Shayam Mochicham. He saw Hur, this son of his sister, had rebuked them, meaning to say we get more context here. Rashi gives us the Midrash is giving us the backstory, because Hur appears at the end of Parshas Mishpatim, that they were sitting there at the foot of the mountain, and then he disappears. It says the hard things take to Joshua and Hur, were holding him in Bishalach, at the end of Bishalach, that Joshua and Hur held up Moshe's arms, and then he disappeared. Where did he go? So it says the Rashi here, Midrash says, Aaron had saw Hur opening up his mouth and rebuking them. So therefore they killed him. And that's what it means. Vayivem is of. He built an altar, but don't read it as he built an altar. Vocalize it as Vayaven mizavuach lefanav. He understood from the one who was killed before him. Meaning to say, he knew what was up. He said, they're going to kill me. My life is in danger. So therefore I have to do this. He did not want them to kill him like they killed Hur. And he was worried that if that would happen, it would be a fulfillment of the prophecy that they killed the Navi and the Kohen on the same day, and they never would be able to repent for it. So he said, I don't want them to. Rashi says, and furthermore, he said, Mutav sheyitle bi aserachon v'obehem. I'd rather have this terrible incident be attributed to me than to them. I'll fall on my sword. He said, I'd rather be the one who sins than let them be the one who sins. This reminds me of a story, a beautiful, beautiful story about the Chafetz Chaim. That one time, the Chafetz Chaim was on a train with Rameir Shapiro, who was the founder of the Daf Yomi. Rameir Shapiro, they were at a train station, and everybody was waiting for the Chafetz Chaim to come out so that they could at least see him while he passed through town. But the Chafetz Chaim refused to get out. So when the train was moving, Rameir Shapiro said, well, why didn't you get up and go out? He said, what do you mean? If I go out, they're going to say false things. He said, what are they going to say? He said, they're going to say I'm a big tzaddik, but it's not true. So he said, well, let's assume for the sake of your argument that it's not true. Big deal. What's the problem? He goes, what do you mean, what's the problem? The problem is that it'll make me arrogant. So Rameir Shapiro says, so what's the big deal if you're arrogant? What do you mean big deal if I'm arrogant? Arrogant is a source of sin. So he says, so what's the big deal? He says, well, if I sin, then I'm going to get punished in Gehenna. I'll get flogged in hell. He said, so because you're going to get flogged in hell, you're going to deprive these people of a few minutes of tremendous joy. And when the Chafetz Chaim heard this, he said, you know what, you're right. And at the next train stop, he ran out and greeted everybody. And the Chafetz Chaim understood that he had to do something that was a little bit uncomfortable, a sin perhaps, in order to make the other people, to help the other people. So to Aaron said, I'd rather have the sin be associated with me than with the Jewish people. Third approach says, Aaron thought, I'm going to make it a building project. It'll never get done. I'll assign it to a committee. It'll never get done. That's what Aaron thought. He said, this one will bring a rock, and this one will bring a pebble. And he said, if they'll do it, it'll never get done. It'll be done right away. But if I do it, I can slow it down. So Aaron was saying, if I do it, I'll slow it down. He was trying to slow it down. Anyway, all these defenses of Aaron, nobody wanted to attribute anything wrong to Aaron. And the next day, and then Aaron says, there's a festival to God tomorrow. So that seems very problematic. How can Aaron say that tomorrow there'll be a festival to Hashem? So Rashi says, he said, yeah, he had his good intent. He says, tomorrow, his mind was to heaven. He said, tomorrow, I'm certain that Moshe will come back and will serve God. So then, they woke up in the next morning. Rashi says, the Satan roused them to get up early. And they brought offerings, and they got up to be merry. Rashi says the word litzachek refers to three sins that they did. Being merry, Rashi shows word litzachek throughout the Bible can mean gilui arayos, shvichus damim, and gilui arayos and shvichus damim, because it says litzachek be, and that's where it means adultery. That's what Potiphar's wife claimed about Joseph, and bloodshed, as it says in the book of Shmuel, that Avner proposed to Yoav that the soldiers fight each other like a gladiator sport. And also, Hor was killed here. So this is Rashi's reading of this text, which is a full-throated defense of Aaron. He blames everybody but Aaron. He blames Satan. He blames the Erev. He also really is defending the Jewish people as well, because he's saying it wasn't their fault. They were tricked by AI. They were tricked by the ultimate AI. They were tricked by Satan. So this was Rashi. Let me read what the Rebbe says. Hold on first. Let me pause for a second, see if anybody has any questions. Okay. Oh yes. Carol. Yes, of course. Let's go back and let me just cite a little bit from the Rebbe's Sichos, the Lubavitcher Rebbe Sichos. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that and this goes back to Bruce's question, the Jewish people were not attempting to find a new God, but rather a replacement for Moshe. That's what Nachmanides says. And so clearly they saw Moshe was delayed, that they clearly were making an attempt to replace Moshe. But they were requesting from Aaron gods that will go before us. So doesn't that seem they were seeking a God? So then the question is, why, says the Rebbe, why would any God go before us? A worshiper should come before his God, not the other way around. So, secondly, it's obvious that we're speaking about, from the end of verse 2, it's obviously we're speaking about a replacement for Moshe, not for God, because it says, this man Moshe, we don't know what happened to him. So basically, they're looking to replace Moshe, now that Moshe had left. So that's very clear what's going on. So what's going on here is that's the way Rashi is reading it, and so that Aaron was exempt. He had some legal requirements, but to my mind, it goes to a much. I want to get to the deeper issue. The deeper issue here is, what are we supposed to learn from this for our own lives? There's so many lessons from here. Let's first start with, to me, what is the most beautiful lesson for me is the way Rashi is unwilling to allow Aaron to have sinned. He when you see somebody who you love, you're not willing to say that they did something wrong. You're going to go above and beyond and to read it charitably. And he doesn't only read this about Aaron, he also reads it about the Jewish people. The whole world is looking at this Jewish people as committing the worst sin ever. Excuse me, one of the worst sins in the history of humanity. But Rachi's not reading it that way. He says that they were tricked. It's a full-throated defense, and he's blaming Satan for that. Secondly, I think it's also an indictment of the people unwilling or unable to do something on their own. What we're saying here is that the whole source was not to get a new God, but was to replace Moshe Rabbeinu, because they felt like we needed a leader. They were so insecure. They said, we can't do something on our own. Well, why not? Why couldn't you do it without Moshe? Believe in yourself. Why do you need to run for an image or a calf to do it? You can do it on your own. Believe in yourself. So that's, to my mind, the basic, simple message of the story of the golden calf. That we shouldn't, when not everything is going according to plan, we shouldn't just rush out to we shouldn't just rush out to find like an idol to help us. So these are some basic messages of this story. Excuse me. So the Rebbe also said, just give me 1 second here. So the Rebbe, thank you so much, thank you. So the Rebbe says, although Aaron never actually worshipped the golden calf, he did participate in making it. However, the Rebbe goes even further than Rashi. As if Rashi's defense wasn't enough, it could be argued that Aaron had no forbidden involvement with the golden calf, because for the following reason: normally an object which has been used for idol worship becomes prohibited for any further beneficial use. However, one condition to this rule is that the idol worshiper worship the idol with his own property. If, however, you use someone else's property, then you can't make that thing prohibited. So since Aaron took other people's property, he wasn't able to do it. So therefore, Aaron was never actually worshiping the golden calf. So he had no forbidden involvement with it at all. It seems like a technical explanation, but it's further evidence of the desire of Aaron to praise, of Rashi to praise Aaron. Nevertheless, we see that later on Rashi tells us in Vayikra that when it came to the calf of the Miluim, Aaron was afraid to do it because he kept seeing the sin in front of him at all times, and he kept seeing the sin of the golden calf. That's why the ultimate purification process is the para aduma, the red heifer, because that's the way we'll ultimately achieve atonement, and that's based upon we ourselves bringing. And Rashi there says, "Let the mother come and clean up the mess of the calf." Anyway, so I guess this story for me is such a challenging story, but I always love the way Rashi just defends Aaron. He's not going to leave Aaron out on an island by himself, and that's the kind of love we should have for Aaron as well. We should love Aaron so much, the people we love, and look at it. If we can look at everybody as charitably as Rashi looks at Aaron, I think we'd all be better people. All right, let me stop and I'd say Bruce or April has a question.